my channel, and if it's your first time here, then welcome. My name is Becca, and today we're going to be talking about a fall makeup edit. So I've shopped my stash quite a bit here. I have a lot of product next to me, which is where I'm looking, and I'm going to be sharing with you products that I love to use for the fall season in terms of color, texture, etc. But I'm also going to be talking through the way that my makeup tastes and preferences change in the fall season. In the summer, I like to be very skin forward. I like sheerer makeup, not too heavy on the eyes, maybe a one and done shadow and very glossy lips, that sort of thing. And in the fall and winter, I lean more into drama. I feel freer to sort of play with pigmentation, to go for a smoky eye or a darker lip color, and I feel like that's more seasonally appropriate. I'm wearing a bunch of the products that I picked out for this edit on my face today, so you'll see how they wear and apply. And for everything that's not on my face, you'll see swatches throughout the video. Let's go in order of application, starting with base. So in the summer, I have oily skin, and so I opt for two things. I opt for lighter coverage and also a more matte finish. Something that will either wear off gracefully throughout the day or that I know will last throughout the day and hold up to the oils in my skin. But in the cooler months, I find myself leaning more toward natural or glowier finish foundations because my skin is not quite as oily. And I also look for slightly higher coverage products that I can pair when I'm wearing a smoky eye, for example, or a dramatic red lip. I feel like those higher pigmentation, more dramatic makeup looks sometimes require a more blank canvas in order to balance the look. So I have two foundations that I like to pull out. So the first one is what I'm wearing today. This is the Pat McGrath foundation, and I'm wearing the shade LM14. So I love this foundation for fall and winter. It's kind of a go-to for me, and it's definitely a top 5 foundation. It's a medium buildable coverage, and it's a very liquidy texture. So if you pump it out, for example, it's a frosted glass bottle with a pump, it will sort of run down the back of your hand, but it's really spreadable. It applies beautifully with a sponge for like a sheer finish or with a brush for a higher coverage finish. Because it is that runnier texture, I find that it's very adjustable in coverage. So one sheer layer will give me a light medium coverage, or I can build this up for higher coverage. Probably not full coverage, but that's usually not what I go for anyways. But yeah, I mean, I have had this for probably a year and a half or so, and it's something I consistently use and love. The next foundation I want to share is the Surratt Dewdrop foundation. I wear the shade 8, and it comes in this really cute packaging. It's like a dropper bottle, and it has a button that you squeeze on the bottom to get the product out. So I know that the name Dewdrop foundation might evoke something very, very lightweight, but this actually has a surprisingly medium sort of coverage. It does cover up sunspots and pigmentation, but it's very skin-like. I do think it's a little bit more luminous on me than the Pat McGrath. The Dewdrop leans a hair or two more dewy, per the name. But I just love how skin-like this really looks, and I think the finish is really beautiful, and I am excited to wear it in the fall and winter because it's something that's a little bit too luminous for me in the summer, but it's perfect for cooler months. The next product is sort of a concealer foundation hybrid. So this is the Merit Beauty, what is this called? Perfecting Complexion Stick. I think it's called the Perfectionist. So I wear the shade Sand, and I've been testing this out. It's a stick foundation that comes in this really beautiful packaging, nice component, and it also pairs with their brush. This is the #1 brush. The stick foundation is probably the nicest stick foundation I've ever tried. Granted, I haven't tried that many. I've tried the Hourglass one. I've tried a few others here and there, but I've never had a stick foundation that I really, really love. And I wouldn't say this is a love, but it's close. So here's the thing. I don't think stick foundations work the best for my skin type, in the sense that they maintain their stick form because there are usually different kinds of emollients or butters or oils in there that sort of hold the formula together. And so they go on really smooth, they look really nice. And then I find that because I have oily skin, the emollient products tend to break down more quickly than a liquid foundation, for example. And I did find that to be the case with the Merit foundation. When this is paired with a mattifying primer, it actually lasts so much longer on me, and I'm finding that I really, really do like it. That said, it applies beautifully. It's very skin smoothing, it's luminous, it's got a light medium coverage, but it's buildable in certain areas. And I find that it actually really smooths the pores, for example. I do think if you have dry patches, it might catch on the dry patches because of the stick formula. So I'm including this in the edit, even though I'm still sort of getting to know this product, because I think it's perfect for a makeup minimalist who wants a product that is light to medium coverage, that can work as both a concealer and a foundation, and it's sort of a one and done base product. And I actually applied this as concealer today over the Pat McGrath foundation, and I really enjoyed it that way for building coverage where I needed it. And the one downfall I would say is that this doesn't contain a lot of product for the price point. This is 0.13 ounces, so 3.7 grams. For some perspective, a liquid foundation is typically 1 ounce. That's kind of the market norm. So it's not a lot of product, and that's kind of why I also think it functions a little bit better and more practically as a concealer. And I think I will probably use it that way more. I paired the Merit foundation stick with the Merit No. 1 brush, and I love this thing. It's a synthetic hair brush. It's $30, I think, and it's the softest synthetic base brush that I think I've ever tried. It honestly feels like my Japanese natural bristle brushes. I don't know how they did it. It's a densely packed brush, but it actually has a nice amount of give to it because the bristles are a little bit longer and they're cut at an angle. So it gives you a lot of flexibility to apply your base products, and it's so soft. It's not streaky at all. The individual bristles are very, very fine. So you don't get any stripes as you're applying. And I really enjoy this for foundation, for concealer. I used it with my liquid foundation today, and it just does everything I want it to do. It's such a multi-function kind of brush, and I really love the shape of it. I don't know, it's just really cute. It fits really well into a makeup bag, and I'm hoping that because this is called the brush No. 1, they'll come out with other brushes in this line. Let's move on to cheek products. So I love blush and bronzer throughout the whole year, but I don't love contour throughout the whole year. I sort of reserve that for the fall and winter months. So I feel like in the summer, I love an all-over bronzy look, that beachy, sun-kissed vibe. And I don't really go for a cooler toned contour. So when I'm in the mood for a cut cheekbone, I have turned to Danessa Myricks, the waterproof cream palette. So she has a few different versions of these. This is the Essentials palette, and it comes with 6 different skin tone shades that can be used for contour, bronzer. You could use this for face makeup. I mean, this is definitely a makeup artist kind of product, but I really like the flexibility of tones in here. So for contour, I like to go across this top row, and sometimes I'll add in a touch of warmth, a touch of more red or more brown. I don't really use the deepest 2 shades very much, but I like the ability to sort of blend my own contour shade. I find that contour products on the market tend to be very, very gray, and that works as a general rule for some skin tones, but it actually doesn't really work that well for me. For me, I need something a little bit more neutral, something that doesn't make me look so ashy, and I feel like a lot of people of color need that in their contour products just because we have more pigment and different kind of pigment in our skin. So I like to go across this top row and blend in warmth where I need it. And I feel like this looks much more natural on me than a really, really gray, ashy, cool toned contour. I feel like it just sort of looks like an extension of my other cheek products rather than a really harsh, cool toned line. The bronzer I'm wearing today isn't necessarily part of this edit, but I think it looks good with these tones. So it's the Gucci bronzer in shade number 3. It's this beautiful compact, and that's the embossing on the pan. It is a really nice caramel, warm undertone bronzer, so I like to pair it when I'm wearing these rich, rusty kinds of tones. I feel like it really suits that kind of eye look. This bronzer is very fragranced. It has the Gucci scent. I love it. I think it smells really nice, but if you're fragrance sensitive, that's just something to be aware of. I also love that there are a range of depths in this bronzer line, so it goes from 1 to maybe 6, I think, and the deepest bronzer does appear to be very deep, so just something to note. Moving into blush, I have a product that makes me feel very fancy. It's actually a multi-purpose product, so it's not exclusively blush, but this is by Rouge, and this is their Le Poudre palette in the shade 01 Signature. So this is a palette of 4 shades that are kind of like a, how do you describe this? It's called a powder, but I find it's more of like a powder to cream sort of texture. It has a puttiness to it, I should say. And these tones are perfect for fall and winter, I think. I mean, I really love these two here, the red and the pink, for year round. I think they're appropriate all year, but especially going into these rust and berry tones, they're the kind of product that look deep in the pan, but when they're sheared out are kind of a smoky, sheer, berry, rust kind of color family. So they're not going to be as deep on the face as they appear in the pan. And they're just such an interesting formula. I love to throw these on as blush. I will take a brush and dip directly into the pan and tap onto my cheeks. And I also love them for the lips, and they give you a very effortless vibe. I mean, this is a French brand, so they're very much evoking that Parisian chic kind of vibe overall with the makeup. And I think if you're a makeup minimalist or you're on the go, you want a multi-purpose product, something that travels really well because you can use this on the cheeks and lips, this is just a beautiful palette. I love cream blush year round, and these are the 2 newest ones in my collection. These are the Merit Flush Balm. I have the shade Terracotta and the shade Beverly Hills. So Terracotta is definitely my kind of shade. It's this beautiful, muted, burnt peach kind of look. It's not necessarily terracotta as you would think. It's almost like if terracotta were a watercolor and you watered it down. It's a very desaturated version of terracotta. Beverly Hills is more of a classic, muted, dusty rose. It's very neutral. It's the kind of cheek color that would look good with almost any kind of eye look. So you can apply these directly to the cheeks, or I actually like to take a brush directly across the surface and then tap the product onto my cheeks. That said, this is not a cream cheek product that sets down on me anyway. It stays kind of dewy, so it's not super long lasting when I wear it on its own over the foundation stick, for example, but it is made longer lasting if I use a mattifying primer or if I set it with powder or a powder blush. I even used it today over a powder blush by lightly tapping it on with a cheek brush, and I actually think it's giving it pretty good longevity, and it didn't disturb the makeup underneath. I have one more cream blush to mention, and it's the Dominique Cosmetics cream blush, specifically in the shade Natural Rose. So this is what it looks like. In the pan, it looks like a rose, but on the skin, it has a really complex quality to it, this shade specifically. It's almost like a rose meets a burnt terracotta coral. There's a richness to it and a brightness to it that comes from that little bit of red, I think, running through it, but it also has a caramelly undertone to it that I find really suits warm toned looks. This formula shears out really easily, but it's also buildable, and I find that when I want a bold cream blush look, I find myself turning to this one a lot. A quick honorary mention for the Fenty Cream Blush in the shade Rosé Latte. I wear this all the time because it's actually a very, very neutral cheek color that goes perfectly with fall and winter tones. So it's what I would call a brownie rose, almost exactly in the middle of brown and dusty rose. There's a touch of almost like mahogany in it, but it sheers out much more than you would think based on how it looks in the pan. And lastly, I have one powder blush. I haven't been wearing a lot of powder blush this year, but this is one I continually go back to. This is the Laura Mercier blush in the shade Fresco. And this is the kind of blush that doesn't look like much in the pan. It's very beige rose, I would say. And it kind of looks almost ashy in the pan, but it applies so differently on the skin than how it looks in the pan. Again, this is a very neutral blush that goes with every kind of eye look. It gives a bit of luminosity to the skin that prevents this from looking like a flat matte blush. Oh my gosh, that was hard to say. But yeah, it bestows a lot of liveliness to the skin, and it makes the skin look very glowy and healthy. This is the only shade that I have in this formula, but I would love to get other shades in this formula because it's really stunning. Ignore my giant nail mark that went through the pan. Oops, sad. Moving on to eye products, specifically eyeshadows. So I have a lot here. I'm gonna talk through them really quickly because I like all of them and they're all here for a reason. The first eyeshadow palette, the most obvious fall palette to me, is the one that I'm wearing on my eyes today. It's Natasha Denona Bronze, and this is one of her midi palettes. The formulas in here are stunning. They're super buttery, very pigmented. It comes with a range of warm bronzes, oranges. It's definitely orange leaning, but then there are these two interesting shades up top here. This is a duochrome, like a smoky purple with a lilac kind of shift. And this is a really, really deep plum. So yeah, I feel like this palette just screams fall. There's obviously a lot of orangey bronzes. I'm wearing some of the more red tones today along with some of the golds. So this is an obvious fall palette for me. The one thing that the bronze palette is missing, in my opinion, is a really light champagne or a light gold. I feel like there are a lot of mid-tone bronze shades in here, and they're all beautiful. They're all subtly different, but I need something to pop in the inner corner, and that's where I turn to this palette, which is the Dior Mitza palette. So this is the Dior Quint. I love their quints. They're highly underrated. They redid these a few years ago and the formula is so, so good. This is almost like a mini edit of the bronze palette. There's a copper shade, a red, a sparkly champagne, a minky brown, and this is like a deep chocolatey brown. This palette is great. I travel with it all the time because I can get a really complete eye look, from inner corner pop to a smokier look to different shimmer options, or any of these shimmer shades. These three create beautiful one and done eyeshadow looks. So I can't recommend this enough, especially if you like warm tones. Another direction I like to go in the fall that's kind of a departure from your pumpkin spice latte, autumn leaves shades is really grungy, mossy greens. So I have another Dior Quint. This is in the shade Jungle, and it's a green color story that also has some more earthy tones. So I love this olive shade. I used it in a recent video. It also comes with this deep emerald green, a deep brown, a champagne pearly shade, and also this warm, more coppery metallic. It's a perfect palette, in my opinion. I love that grungy olive mood that it can give me. I also love pairing that with what I think is an ultimate green lover's palette. This is the Smoke Sessions palette from Melt Cosmetics. It's such a unique, amazing color story. Like, the metallics in here do not fuck around. They are super creamy, super pigmented. They have a lot of emolliency in the formula that binds the pigment together. So this side, obviously you get your kind of grungier, gold-leaning metallics, and you get a couple of mattes in the middle. And then this side of the palette, you get the more frosty, minty greens, emerald green here. It's beautiful, and I feel like it's actually kind of hard to find a variation of green shades that don't all have a black base pigment. I find that a lot of deeper greens on the market have a really sooty base, so that when you blend out the edges, it just kind of looks black, or sometimes it just looks dirty. These actually have a very pigmented quality to them, that they're true to color as what you see in the pan when they're built up, and they don't just look dirty on the eye. So I actually think it's a pretty unique formula in that way. I very quickly want to mention a couple of different Chantecaille eyeshadow formulas because I think they're great for one and done or smaller format eyeshadows. These are the Chantecaille Le Chrome Luxe Eye Duos. I have two shades. The first is Monte Carlo, and this there's like a satiny pink and a very complex taupey bronze. They are so much more complex on the eyes than they appear in the pan. In the pan, they just kind of look like standard eyeshadows, but they have so much dimension, so much complexity, and they're really not what they appear to be in the pan. The second one is the color story called Tibet. This is very cool toned for me. I actually specifically really like this shade. It's a very good dupe for Victoria Beckham Beauty's Mink lid luster, their single pressed eyeshadow pot. This is almost identical to that in that it has a bronzy, taupey, smoky base, but it has a kind of silvery shift to it that makes it very complex and surprising to the eye. It's not what it seems to be in the pan at all. So those are two smaller format eyeshadows that I think if you're a makeup minimalist, you might really like. I also had to mention their luminescent eye shades. These are eyeshadow singles that are named after animals, and some of the sales from each shadow go toward the conservation of that animal species. But I want to mention a few of them specifically for fall winter. So this first one is called Elephant. It's a really beautiful smoky taupe kind of shade. There's a bit of gray in it. It's definitely a cool tone. The next shade is Rhino. I love this one. It is similar to Elephant, but it actually is olive. So there's a touch of green duochrome, I think, running through it that you can see. And when you blend it out on the eyes, it gives you a very sparkly olive effect. It's very cool. And the last one is the shade Giraffe. This is a classic brown bronze, a very chocolatey kind of burnished bronze sort of look. I did also recently get the Chantecaille Fall Collection in the mail. That's the one with the two luminescent eye shades. I think it's Tiger and something else, but it's an emerald green luminescent eye shade. I cannot wait to try it, so I will show that in a new makeup video sometime soon. Finally, we're on to lips, starting with lip glosses. So I've got 3 of them here of different shades. The lightest one is by Urban Decay, and this is their new Plumping Shine lip balm, and this is in the shade Runyon. It's a very caramel, yellow undertone, beige lip gloss. The second gloss is by Pat McGrath, and this is Bronze Temptation. This is a beautiful, rusty, kind of chai, spicy, cinnamony sort of shade, and it has a bit of gold shimmer running through it. Not anywhere enough that it would be like a metallic lip, but it does create a nice sheen on the lips. Very glossy. The last gloss is the Rowan Liquid Lip Balm in the shade Scout. So I realize it's called a liquid lip balm, but it basically functions as a gloss in my collection. This is about as berry as I go in this edit, but I love this version of it because I get that popsicle stain version of a berry rather than a full-on pigment. And then I've got the cousin to the lip gloss, which is a lip oil, and I actually have 3 lip oils here by Merit Beauty. These are stunning. So I'm wearing the shade Cara Cara right now, which is this middle one. It's a very rusty orange, persimmon orange kind of look. I also have taupe, which is a medium toned caramel beigey brown, and the shade Marrakesh, which on me is kind of like a peachy nude. I feel like the name lip oil evokes something very slippy and thin, something that's not very long lasting. And these are actually an oil meets a gloss, I would say. They're very nourishing and hydrating on the lips. They do have a bit of that slippiness, but it's not slidey. Like, it won't move around on your lip lines, it won't migrate. It wears away gracefully and you're able to reapply it with ease. I love these so much. They've been living in my purse since I got them. Then I've got 5 lip liners. The first 3, some may argue, are very similar in tone, but to me they're quite different. So I have the Victoria Beckham lip definer in the shade 02, which gives me a perfect 90s supermodel sculpted lip look. A touch warmer than that is Makeup Forever's Anywhere Caffeine, and this is, I've mentioned, the truest my lip color lip pencil that I have. It pairs with everything from a nude lip to even a red. It's a really great tone for me for overlining the lip. The coolest toned lip liner of the bunch is the Kevyn Aucoin lip liner in the shade Divine. This is what I turn to if I want an almost Kardashian-esque nude lip. It gives me, it's about as cool toned as I dare to go on my skin tone, but it works really well if I want a sort of statement nude lip and I pair this with a nude lipstick. It gives me a really nice contoured sculpted lip look. So those 3 are what I would call my nude lip liners for my skin tone, and these are all traditional wooden pencil formats. Then I've got the Mellow Cosmetics lip liner, and this is in the shade Rose. I think this is much more of like a terracotta meets rose. It's very warm toned and it has a bit of orange running through it, so much so that I actually paired it with the Merit Cara Cara lip oil that I am wearing today. And this is a gel formula lip pencil, so it's not as dry as the wooden lip pencils. It's a little bit creamier. It has definitely more silicone in it. And the last is another gel lip liner, which is the Jason Wu lip liner in the shade number 10 Luminous. So this is my chocolate brown lip liner. This is what I go for if I want a vampier look. And finally, I am closing out this fall edit with classic bullet lipsticks. So I have a range here from sheer to very pigmented, from glossy to matte. I also find that I'm much more likely to pick up a traditional bullet lipstick in the fall and winter. That's when they get the most action in my collection, versus in the spring and summer when I'm opting for more sheer, balmy, glossy kind of formulas. So first up, I had to include this formula. It's the Victoria Beckham Beauty lipstick in the shade Spice. So this was included in her first release of these lipsticks, and it's the perfect terracotta, orange undertone, caramel leaning, yellow undertone nude. And I find that this is so flattering on my skin tone. And if you've ever felt like pinky nudes wash you out or more traditional rosy nudes wash you out, you should definitely check out Spice. I think it's a very unique shade, actually. I've never been able to dupe this shade in my collection or in any other lipsticks that I've tried, so it's definitely worth a look, especially I think if you are a person of color around my skin tone and you need that little bit of warmth for a nude lip to bring your face to life. Spice is a perfect shade. The second one is a drugstore favorite. It's the Revlon Super Lustrous lipstick in the shade Sparkling Honey. It looks deep in the tube. It looks actually quite almost brown mahogany, but on the lips, it's a very neutral caramel undertone. It actually almost looks like the Urban Decay Runyon gloss. They give a similar vibe. This does have a bit of sheen running through it that creates that glossy illusion on the lips, but it won't actually look sparkly on the lips. Then I have the Gucci sheer lipstick in the shade Marguerite Jade, and this shade is also undupable. It does a similar thing that Clinique Black Honey does, which is it looks very deep in the tube, and then it creates a really sheer, glossy, desaturated version of what's in the tube. But unlike Black Honey, this is quite warm. It's a warm leaning mahogany brown. There's that bit of red running through it. It has almost like a chestnut kind of vibe. And on the lips, it's so flattering. I know it looks scary in the tube, but this is really the kind of shade that transforms as you're applying it, and it really brings the face to life. Also, you can't not note the packaging. It's a little work of art. It's beautiful, and it feels like such a treat when you get to apply it. Switching into matte lipsticks, I have two of my favorite Lisa Eldridge True Velvet lipsticks. She's actually about to launch more shades of this tomorrow as I'm filming, so I may pick up more of those. I'm also interested in her lip liners. I'm gonna have to take a look. But I have the shade Velvet Affair, which I think Lisa herself describes as a caramel brown. It has a bit of smokiness to it that really pairs well with a kind of grungy eye look. And then I've got Velvet Dragon, which is a very rusty kind of red. It's perfect for fall. It looks really good with a pumpkin spice, like autumn leaves kind of look. And this formula is so comfortable. It's a very creamy matte. They're super pigmented, and they're so reliable when you want a bold lip, but you don't want it to budge. Then I've got a K-Beauty lipstick. This is by 3CE, and this is a matte formula in the shade Hit Me Up. And I love the monochromatic packaging. Hit Me Up is a true orangey brown, rusty orangey brown. It's as orange as any of the lipsticks go. Sort of that silicone heavy formula that gives the matte lipstick a bit of slip to it. So it's not really, really dry. It doesn't completely dry down. It feels more velvety on the lips than anything. So that's everything. That wraps up what I now realize is a very extensive fall makeup edit. For me, I don't love cooler weather, but I do like to embrace the opportunity and the inclination to play with more dramatic makeup overall. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope the swatches were helpful. I'd love for you to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!